Shabbat Shalom and welcome to Israel Update. I am joined by Doobie today. Doob, Shalom.
Shalom, Shabbat Shalom.
So for everybody out there, we're almost done with the first month of 2023, which feels kind of crazy, but here we are. And obviously a lot has happened in Israel, specifically with the elections, a miracle that we didn't know what was going to happen. But Doobs, talk to us a little bit about that, about what that looks like right now.
Well, we never really thought that we're going to be so lucky, I can say, really, that Netanyahu is going to be reelected to be actually the sixth government of Benjamin Netanyahu is just been launched so recently in Israel. And as many hinders as the opposition is trying to just all the obstacles they're trying to put on the way to try and stop the will of God. It's just not happening. Bibi is being elected and re-elected. And this time, we hope that he'll finish the term because it's been really crazy recently. And we're seeing that they formed a much more right-wing government, which really wants to deal with the real issues of Israel now. And just we're hoping that this is going to go through because the opposition is just being protesting so badly everywhere. They're just not accepting the results of the elections, and it's quite hectic.
Yeah, and that's the thing, for all of us here, obviously, very often we'll kind of jump into action and start praying or whatever it is when we see that there's rocket fire happening. But so many of the defenses of Israel are put in place on the political arena. It was through the government of Benjamin Netanyahu when he implemented checkpoints that the acts of terrorism that we saw in Israel decreased by something like 90%. And this is one of the propaganda lies that's told by the Palestinians and their regime is, they stop and check all Palestinians. And the truth is everybody gets stopped and checked. I've been in Israel with Doobie and seen soldiers being stopped and checked. I was stopped and checked. We were stopped and checked. And the reason is to try and make sure that these enemies that so clearly profess hatred of Israel, so that there's some barrier between their regime and the people of Israel. And that's something that I think that we have to be aware of in terms of the policies. It can seem very boring, and I have arguments like this with my friends all the time, where I'm like, you have to read the policy to understand what is actually going on here. When the Abraham Accords came out, I read every single page, like every single word on every single page, because I wanted to understand, I wanted to know what was going on. And we have to be aware that even though, I'm a South African living in LA, it doesn't matter where we're from or where we're living, our desire for Israel to flourish is there because that's God's desire. And us taking seriously what's taking place in Israel from a political perspective, that's something we have to do and something we have to be praying about. And so, Doobs, what do you think the biggest issue is that Bibi's facing and is going to face after having formed his new government?
Well, it's always been the same story, I think, recently in the last, I would say, 15 years or so. It's first and foremost dealing with the situation with Iran. I mean, just last week's update, I was talking about this, and the situation continues, and there's a huge escalation now around the borders of Israel, but also what's happening in between Iran and Russia concerning the Ukraine war, the way that they are, recently we heard more and more about Russian engineers are going into Iran to improve their weaponry. Iran is manufacturing and mass producing weapons for Russia because Russia is in a very, very tough economical situation due to the war in Ukraine. And thank God to the fact that the US and NATO are helping Ukraine against the tyranny of Putin and his proxies. But, in the end of the day, you have two strong nations, really strong nations, Russia and Iran, on the same axis of evil. Coming against Ukraine. And this is a challenge and actually a test for the rest of the world because we know for sure that if they're going to put down Ukraine, this is their pursuit to go on and start moving towards other democracies in the region. And also this will encourage the Iranians to know that they have an alliance right now and the amnesties with Russia, that they would be able to have a little bit more light hand on the light finger on the trigger against Israel here and maybe use their proxies like Hamas and the Hezbollah to start provoking us. And on the contrary, on the other side, and this is something that we need to refer to as the fact that Bibi Netanyahu is back. He's the one, together with Donald Trump, who started the Abraham Accord,
Yeah.
and the nations that are part of the Abraham Accord, they didn't do it because they loved Israel so much. They've
Yes.
done it because the enemy of your enemy is your friend somehow, and because they know that Israel has the power, the ability, the intelligence to deal with the biggest foe in
Yes.
the Middle East is Iran. That's why all these Gulf nations are getting closer and closer with Israel, and I'm looking into that situation right now, knowing that Benjamin Netanyahu is literally the only one who can really bring also Saudi Arabia, which is a mighty strong nation,
Yes.
into the equation. And this might change the scale in favor of this axis of, I would say, anti-Iran Russia, um, in order to balance the situation a little bit more. But it's definitely only Benjamin Netanyahu. I mean, we heard so many rumors and sounds and stories about the fact that because there is this type of a government in the US and a right-wing government in Israel, the situation is going to escalate, and the relationship between Israel and America are going to go down the drain. So let nobody frighten us. And we know for sure that even though they have different type of government, the American regime, and especially Joe Biden and his people, they admire Benjamin Netanyahu. They know that this guy really knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And they literally know also that, I mean, either from a biblical point of view or God knows what type of point of view, but I know that they are aware of the fact that Israel is a key player
Yes.
in any situation that's going to occur in the future. They're just sending Jack Sullivan into Israel, the highest advisor of the president for national security, to come here to speak with Israel, to realize and understand and learn what can we do in order to push Iran out and back from attacking, American allies in the region, but also from that evil axis that they're forming together with Russia. So Israel was and always will be, and we read Bible prophecies and we trust the word of God, will be a key player
Yeah.
in this whole situation. And when you are a key player, you need a key leader and a right coordinator. And this is Netanyahu, just like he prophesied about him and spoke directly about the fact that he's just not just a leader, but also a prophet of
Prophet.
God, a
Yeah.
messenger of God. So we know that all the different angles are setting in place towards towards literally seeing Bible prophecies coming to pass in our day and age.
Yes, and the thing that I was just thinking about now is this is not the first time a Jewish king has faced the giant. When we look historically, King David, before he was king, was the only one who went up to face Goliath. And when we read the account of how monstrous this human was, how tall he was, how big his weapons were, and the way he ridiculed the nation of Israel, the God of Israel, and the shepherd boy with a sling and 5 stones took down one of the greatest giants that had ever roamed the earth. And Israel was saved because of the actions of one boy who walked ahead in faith. And so I think about that, and I think about Bibi, and he's kind of the same. If we look at the genealogy of kings and the
Yeah. Thank
genealogy of
God.
prophets,
Thank God Bibi is not a boy anymore. Thank
Bibi's
God,
not a
he's
boy.
he's as old as the state of Israel,
He's,
very, very experienced. And
yes,
I think he's nowadays the most experienced leader in the world.
he is. And if you think about what God could do with a simple shepherd boy, what can God do with this magnificent specimen of a man who's got the most ridiculously high IQ, who is well educated beyond most people, who has more experience than most people? I feel like this is a weapon of a human moving in the hands of God. And so that gives me a lot of faith, because I'm like, if God could do that with David before he was a king, when he was just a boy, what can God do with Bibi now in this day and age, with what he's got, with what he's been through? And so I'm full of hope and expectancy to see what I think will be a biblical level intervention of God. And it will not be the first time we've seen a Jewish man bring a giant to its knees. And that's the faith that I have when it comes to Israel and Iran. I know that it looks like the old school story of David and Goliath, but we know how that ended. And God is still the same. He's still working on behalf of Israel like he did in Bible times. So I have faith for what's to come. But Doobs, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for being here. And yeah, to everybody who's watching, just keep tuning in. We've got new stuff for you every week. And Doobie is currently traveling all over, so you'll be hearing from him in new and various places. But Doobs, love you. Thank you for being with me today.
Love you too. Love everybody. Just, Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom, and we'll see you next week on Israel Update. God bless.